Hi everyone, welcome to Spiritual World. My name's Jean, in which we talk about all things related to spirituality so it can empower you on your day-to-day life. Today I'm here to talk to you about habits. I think habits is something that everyone loves to talk about, but sometimes it's a bit hard to implement. So recently my friend was reading Atomic Habits by James Clear, and everyone has been talking about atomic habits. So I'm like, okay, might as well give it a try because I've been reading a lot of habits book in the past. So I'm gonna give it a try to see how it goes. I love that. It is so actionable, so good. So if you are someone that's into habits, I strongly suggest for you to read it. Now, let's talk about it. Now, sometimes whenever we have to think about a habit, we have to think about the following 4 points according to James Clear. The first one is the cue. So how do you make a habit very obvious? Is the craving. So how do you make something very attractive? 3 is the response. How do you make this habit easy? And 4th is how do you make it satisfying? The reward is how do you make this habit satisfying? So the opposite is true if you want to stop the habit. You want to make sure it is unattractive, unsatisfying, it's invisible, and it's unrewarding. So just try to revert the pattern and you can move away from the habit. Now, let's talk about the different type of habits. So when it comes to habit, a lot of times we have to consider who we surround ourselves with. So you have to think about habits. So for example, there was a research done on some of the US neighborhood. So they checked at some of the people that have very high expensive bills and some people that had lower electricity bills. So if you could see it from that perspective, you will understand that the people that happen to have very expensive electricity bills, it so happened that their electricity meters was whether at the basement or at the second floor, I think mostly basement. And then when it comes to the people that had reduced electricity bill, was the people that had their electricity meter on the first floor. Because they were right next to it, it was so obvious for them to turn off whenever they wanted to. And if they notice, they pass by, oh, it's too hot, I'll turn it off. And that is the beauty of habit, because it's visible, it's obvious for you to make that kind of change. Now, there will be times, for example, we'll see people that are on drugs. The people that have drug addiction, they are hanging around their peers, and then they go to a rehab center. At the rehab center, they are not allowed to drink and party and do all of that. So they come clean, right? And then they go back to their old environment, which is still party, drugs, all kind of things. So they fall back into the old habit. You might say, well, drug is a huge problem, it's hard. Well, I'll tell you with a study that James Clear said. So in the Vietnamese War, what happened is that a lot of soldiers were consuming drug heavily. At least 50% of them were consuming drugs. However, after they got transported back to US, to their family, to their close one, 90% of them actually stopped consuming drugs because they got clean immediately, because they were no longer in the environment. And this is what you should understand. A lot of time, the environment that we're surrounded with will affect us. For example, if you see a partner suddenly getting fit, you'll see the other partner may be getting fit. Maybe you're part of a crowd that people are leaner and you are probably leaner too. For example, I wasn't into smoothies. I moved to Vancouver and suddenly became a big smoothie lover. And there is like a health store like every other corner with all the juicers, right? So making things obvious really does affect the way you think, the the pattern that occurs. So let's say, for example, you're someone that wants to cultivate a good habit. You had a bad day, you feel sluggish, you return home and you are so tired. Because you feel sluggish, you decide to turn on Netflix and watch some Netflix. After watching so much episode to numb your emotion, you feel worse. You feel even more sluggish. So you're repeating this whole loop pattern. So it's really important what you put inside of your head. For example, a lot of speakers often speak about how important it is whatever you put in your mindset, whatever goes into your heart. So sometimes, for example, I feel really bad about myself. I have a worry and suddenly I feel the snowball like going down, and all the things that I wanted is like suddenly like worse and worse. So it's like a perpetual of bad thoughts. So whenever I see that, when I am good, I will go out for a walk because it makes me feel better, the energy is moving and I feel better. But in order for you to really transform some of those habits that you don't like, it's how do you make it attractive? So for example, you want to do workout. You don't like workout, so you're like, I'm with my yoga mat right here and you don't like it, so you can do your yoga mat while you are enjoying reading. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy both, but I'm just giving you an example. For example, some people have a whole mailbox to clear, but they don't want to clear it, but they also have a pedicure. They are happy, so they're doing their pedicure while they're cleaning their mailbox. It's also very important to note that very often that cultivating a habit takes time. The author, James Clear, actually mentioned this habit. So what you could do is like, you do the habit for 1 minute and you stop. For example, every day you have to go to the gym for 1 minute. You stop after 1 minute. Oh, imagine you're in the gym and you're only there for 1 minute. Or for example, you're like, I'm gonna do skip the rope, I'm gonna do jumping jack 1 minute every day. And gradually every day as you do it, you become more accustomed. Your body is getting used to it because you have to stop after 1 minute. And because you get used to it, instead you get elongated to 5 minutes and things like that. And one day you get so used to the habit, you're like, what? I'm only going to the gym for 5 minutes, might as well do a bit more. For example, you're doing skipping the rope 5 minutes, but it's nothing. Then you begin to increase it. And it's with that your body will adapt, and also your habit will cultivate itself and it'll get really, really used to it. So a lot of habit, you need to have a ritual to it. For example, there was a ballerina, she had to train every day to the studio. So she made it as a ritual for her to every day hop onto a taxi, then driving her to the studio. The ritual for her was the ride to the taxi and then hopping into the studio. She made it part of a ritual, so it's easy for her to cultivate the habit. So I hope this really helps you, just like how much it has helped me so much in this book. And if you ever get a chance, go read the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. So have a nice week, everyone. Bye bye for now.